citizens lately, and I'm really, really happy to be connecting with some folks who are youth and who might be interested in this project as well. So I am the director of a project called the Local Community Food Center. Does anyone know the Country Depot on Erie Street? Do you know that space? You probably all know the Erie Street Drive-In, the place where you get the hot dogs and stuff like that. So right next door is a site where it used to be the Stratford Farmers Co-op, so the Perth County Farmers Co-op, where they provided farmers with a place to pick up grain and feed and all sorts of stuff like that. And most recently it was a Country Depot, which is sort of like a farm supply store. And it hasn't been used for anything for a couple of years. And we're really excited about taking over that site because along with the fact that it has a lot of space for what I'm going to tell you about, it also has this really big greenhouse right next to it, left over from when there was a nursery there, and it also has all sorts of space out back where we're going to be building community gardens. So everything I'm telling you right now, just sort of picture it being in that location. So I was really happy to hear that you were already thinking about and exploring the concept of food insecurity. A lot of the time when I present to folks, I sort of have to explain it to them from the ground up, but you guys have an idea of what food insecurity is. So I'd be curious to hear a few of your definitions of what you folks define food insecurity as, or did you ask them to define food security or food insecurity?
Food security.
Food security. So anyone got a definition for food security? Did you guys do your homework? Yeah.
Having access to healthy foods.
Exactly. Access is a really big principle, and healthy foods is also a big principle. I'm glad that you made that distinction, because that's something that we're really working towards. Is yes, food itself is vitally important, but healthy food is just as important, because interestingly enough, some food can actually be harmful, and so it's great to always emphasize healthy and access. Any other definitions that include anything other than access and health? Yes?
Being able to know what you're eating.
Being able to know what you're eating, that's a big component of security when it comes to food. So that's a lot to do with education and experience, culture, and just being connected with the food that you're eating. So that's a really good point too. Any other pieces to the concept of food security that you guys can add? Anyone have just a word that you can add to the definition? Yes?
Plentiful supply.
Plentiful supply, yes, that's true. And a stable supply?
Yeah.
A supply that's not going to be interrupted, a supply that you can depend on. That's a great point too. The one thing that I always come back to when I'm thinking about food security or food insecurity is choice. It's being able to put food on your table that you would choose to put on your table. So if it was a situation globally where there was an interrupted supply, then there's no choice. You don't have food. And so that's obviously very, very extreme food insecurity. But even, let's say you wanted to grow your own food. That was a choice that you wanted to make, and you had no land, or no access, no place to garden like you folks have this garden out here. So that would be an element of food insecurity. Another thing would be choosing healthy food. Not just taking what you can get, just taking whatever is available. I'm going to talk in a moment about the concept of food deserts, where there's no access to healthy food, and therefore the only choice you have is basically fast food or food that's highly processed. So can anyone think of another, other than access, another barrier? What do you think the biggest barrier to choice would be in the lives of people? Yes? Wealth, exactly. It's income. So inequality of income parallels inequality in food security. So unfortunately, and this is something that we're trying to change, in a society where food isn't viewed as a right that everyone should share, income ends up creating food insecurity and being an impediment to food security. So poverty is very, very closely associated with food insecurity, unfortunately. And so basically, yeah, the big barriers are access and income. And that's something that my project and other projects like it are trying to change. So I did a little research when I first started on this project about a year ago. And I think it's time for me to go back to the books and start getting a little bit more updated statistics, because I think this is from 2009. But the Perth District Health Unit does several studies around food security in our county, in Perth County. And back in 2010, they reported that 7.5 of the households in Perth County reported being food insecure. And as a symptom of that, food banks throughout Perth County and community drop-in meals, so places where people can come and get a hot meal, are in high demand. And that's particularly true among people who are living on social assistance, so that's people who are on a fixed income, and single-parent families. Now, recently there was a budget that was tabled by the Ontario government, and it was in many ways known as austerity, so it means that they're just trying to cut down on spending. However, that sort of approach when it comes to food is highly problematic. So what really jumped out from that budget was that for social assistance in Ontario, there was a 0% increase in people's payments. And you're going to see in a minute how that does not keep up with the price of food. But what the problem is when it comes to social assistance and food is that when you're presented in a situation where you have a fixed income, you get you're on disability, you have $900 a month to spend. But $350 of that might go just to rent. Another 100 maybe to hydro, gas, these kind of things. It really starts eating into that 900 pretty quick. And when studies have found that when people are put into positions where their budgets are strained, food is the first thing to go. So you're not going to say, oh, I guess I'll skip paying the rent this month and go live out on the streets this month. Most people wouldn't say that. They'd say, okay, I'm going to make sure I get my rent paid first so I have a roof over my head. But they'll say, maybe I can live on ramen noodles all month. They're only 5 cents, 15 cents, and that's like a highly processed product that's not helping anyone when it comes to health. And even if they're accessing food banks, a lot of the time what they're going to find is that the food at the food banks, unfortunately, due to issues of capacity that I'm going to talk to you about in a sec, when you go to a food bank, you guys all know, when the food drives come out, you are told to provide non-perishables. So that's generally stuff like ramen noodles, pasta is a good one. Nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but I'm just saying that this is the constraints. It doesn't go beyond dry goods, canned goods, often highly processed goods. And so that's what folks who are struggling to make ends meet eat, is generally those kind of products. So, and again, it's great that food banks are providing them with what's known as emergency food. But at the same time, there must be some sort of opportunity that we can create to enhance the food that's going through those to make it more healthy. Let's move on to the next one. And I don't know how many of you folks do the grocery shopping in your house, but year after year after year, you look at your grocery bill, you buy almost the exact same amount, exact same grocery list, and you find that it goes up, the price goes up. The Perth District Health Unit has a pretty cool study that they do. They get volunteers and sort of master's students and stuff to go to every single grocery store in Perth County and buy the exact same shopping list that's considered what it would take to feed a family of 4, a nutritious diet for just 1 week. And this year, they found that to buy that exact same basket that they bought last year, it cost $182.39. So to feed a family of 4 a nutritious diet for just 1 week, it's $182.39. So you do that, you think about a $900 fixed income family on social assistance, and you multiply that by 4, and there's like $100 left for everything else. So obviously there's significant impediments for people who are on fixed incomes or low incomes to meet that budget. And that went up just 7.6% in 1 single year. So that means if it was to go at that rate, that means in 4 years it would go up 30% almost. And that's, it's pretty dramatic, I think. So, food banks are, as I mentioned, food banks known as an emergency food service. And I'm sure all of you have heard of the House of Blessings. They've done fantastic work, and they're also happen to be Justin Bieber's favorite charity after he went on the Jay Leno show, I think, saying that his family had actually accessed the House of Blessing when he was younger, and that the House of Blessing had helped them through tough times. And so he had actually coordinated, I think, what ended up being about $10,000 worth of donated donated money to the House of Blessing right around Christmas. So in 2010, just the first 6 months of 2010, the House of Blessings calculated that they provided food that fed 2,442 people. And when they did that calculation, they found that over 1/3 of all those people were children. And they also found, and this is significant, that the number of new families, so this is families who had never ever gone to the House of Blessing before. New families accessed the House of Blessing. There was 156 new families in just 6 months at the House of Blessing. So that along with the previous thing that I showed you about the escalating price of food, it just shows that this is not a problem that's going away or getting easier for anybody. It's actually increasing. And that also shows up at the drop-in meals. Believe it or not, there are 12 locations right now where people who are looking for a hot meal can come out of the cold and have one in Stratford. And that's just phenomenal when you think about it. That's basically, people can find a meal virtually every day of the week. But that's between November and April. I mentioned a hot meal on a cold day. It's this sort of out of the cold idea where, and rightly so, people are given the opportunity to come and get out of the cold and have a good meal together, and that's important. So these are at churches. There's a church right down the street here, St. Andrews, isn't it?
James.
St. James. Basically all the churches have a community meal that they provide. And there's like a schedule that people have so they can see the calendar and be coordinated and plan their lives around that. There's a church called Zion Lutheran, which is up Erie Street. And just to demonstrate to you how the demand is increasing, they they have served community meals for quite some time, and they usually plan for around 90 or 100 people to come, and they do their meals monthly. And so at their last meal, they had a turkey dinner. And they were planning to serve 100 people, so they were giving people nice big slabs of turkey and all the trimmings. And then the people just kept coming, and so they had to sort of cut the portions down a little bit. And there's still people still looking at the door. People are still coming in, and 150 people came through the doors that day. And they still fed them all, but I think by the end, some people were sort of eating potatoes and gravy and maybe didn't get any of the good turkey bite. It's important that they still fed people. And can anyone tell me what another element of a community meal might be about for people who come together at these meals? Can anyone think of, outside of getting fed, is there anything else that you can think that might be provided through these meals to people? Yes?
It's going to just be the fact that they're not alone.
You got it. Reduction of social isolation. So I did, when I first got on board around this time last year, I actually went around to the community meals and I sat and I talked to people. I wanted to find out what it was that they appreciated about community meals. I wanted to find out how they got to the community meals, because we're going to be providing community meals at our center. And it's very important to me to start with the people and figure out what their priorities are and then to work on fulfilling those priorities. So I asked them, I said, why are you here? And a lot of them actually said, I probably could have scraped together a meal tonight if I had to. But A, the food here is great, and it's a little more healthy than maybe what I could have put together. But overwhelmingly, I found that this was a social experience for people who otherwise might not have had a chance to even get out of the house. One guy told me he struggled with mental illness, he was coping with mental illness, and that if he stayed home, that was the illness winning. And so he came out to these meals and he said, I can go to any table around this room and sit down and know people at the table, and I met them all at the community meals. So if anyone's ever, and you'll hear this sometimes, if anyone's ever like, oh, those people who show up at community meals, they're just sort of freeloaders,